Hey everybody, welcome back to Truth Unchained Ministries. My name's Tony Phillips, and this is where we help you study the Bible for yourself. Today we're going to be looking at judgment. Should a Christian judge? Why should we judge? And how we should judge? And most importantly, who should we judge? I want to point out before we begin that we need to look at ourselves. When we talk about judgment, do you understand what judgment is? Because a lot of times what will happen is a person will claim that they're being judged when in reality they just don't want to be criticized and they don't want what they're doing pointed out and they get their feelings hurt. Judgment, it's not about feelings. It's just about biblical facts. You make a claim, pronounce right or wrong, sentence. That's all judgment is. So I'm sure we've all heard from people that we've pointed stuff out to, well, doesn't the Bible say that we're not supposed to judge or we're going to be judged ourselves? And they run to Matthew 7:1 and they just act all superior, high and mighty, whatever. But they're taking that verse out of context. So instead of taking just one verse and making your whole doctrine based off that, let's look at what Jesus said in Matthew 7 and see what the verses that follow actually say. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye meet, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. See, we are to judge, but you got to fix yourself first. The Apostle Paul continues this in Romans chapter 2. Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Thou that preachest a man should not steal, dost thou steal? Thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, dost thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, dost thou commit sacrilege? You see, when you go around warning people about the consequences of sin, don't be a hypocrite. Sin is sin. And if you're doing something, you're inadvertently telling them that it's not a big deal. If you're looking at pornography and telling people not to look at porn and warning them about the dangers, do you truly believe that pornography is wrong? If you're getting drunk, if you're drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, doing drugs, lying, cheating, stealing, whatever, are you taking sin seriously? Or are you just being a hypocrite while trying to teach others? You see, our testimony is what we need to guard. And that is so clear throughout the New Testament. But I want you to look at something on your own after this message. Look at Romans 2. We read verses 20 and 21. Read the following verses, because what you're going to find out is something very scary, very shameful, and something that God takes seriously. You see, when you and I live like a hypocrite, we're the reasons that unbelievers blaspheme God. He says that in the following verses. So look at that and keep that in mind as you work towards fixing yourself. I don't know about you, but I do not want to be responsible for people blaspheming God. It's a horrible feeling. That's why before we judge others, we're to judge ourselves. I want you to look up the following verses. Take time and prayerfully read over them. Because it's more than just a command to judge yourself before you judge others. There's more to it than that. So look at the following verses. Luke 12:57 and 1 Corinthians 11:13 and 11:31. See, judgment's important. Without judgment, You would not be able to solve issues. Judgment is pronouncing right from wrong. It's about justice, and it's about showing mercy. In 1 Corinthians 6, we look at the problem the church at Corinth was having, Christians suing Christians. And Paul, he has some choice words to say about these carnal Christians. Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust, and not before the saints? Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? If then ye have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church. I speak to your shame. Is it so that there is not a wise man among you? No, not one, that shall be able to judge between his brethren? But brother goeth to law with brother, and that before unbelievers. Now, therefore, there is utterly a fault among you, because ye go to law one with another. Why do ye not rather take wrong? Why do ye not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? Nay, ye do wrong and defraud, and that your brethren. 1 Thessalonians 4:3 tells us that we are to be sanctified. We're to be separate from this world. In the context of 1 Thessalonians 4 is us doing the sanctification. It's separate from the sanctification that Jesus Christ provides at the moment of salvation, where we're separate from the world, spiritually speaking. This is a sanctification where you don't resemble the world at all. It's a division point. The world says that you are to get what's rightfully yours. The world says that you are to punish the wrongdoer. The world says that you need to take revenge. But Romans 12:19 tells us that vengeance belongs to the Lord. 1 Corinthians 6 and 1 Thessalonians 4:6, they tie in together. We're to turn the other cheek when it comes to our brethren. We're to forgive when it comes to our brethren. We're to just accept that we were defrauded and let God sort it out. So it's very important because nobody can have peace with each other like Christians can. But oftentimes we mix up how we're supposed to deal with each other versus how we're supposed to deal with lost people. And there's a difference. So please keep that in mind as you read Matthew 7, which is brother against brother, context being Jews, but it's still brother against brother. And 1 Corinthians 6, Christian against Christian. But what about the world? Paul said in Romans 2:16 that the world shall be judged according to his gospel. It will be judged by his gospel. Romans 2:16. That's the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 15:1-4. There's no point in you or me or any believer going around and judging the sins of other people. There's no point. You could put a shock collar on a person that zaps them and conditions them never to lie. But if they don't have faith in Jesus Christ and come to him for salvation and believe the gospel, they're still going to hell. You cannot legislate morality. You cannot force somebody to believe, and you cannot earn your way into heaven. So when it comes to judging the world, we need to point out the sentence that without Jesus Christ, by rejecting him, you are going to hell. And it's not a fun truth. It's not a fun judgment to share. But there's hope that comes along with it. God does not want anybody to go to hell. He proved that, John 3:16. However, when you read John 3:17 and 18, you'll find that it's up to us to accept that gift. You can accept the gift of Jesus Christ, that blood he shed on the cross for remission of sins, and go to heaven, have eternal life, or you can reject him and be condemned. That's judgment. But that's how we're supposed to treat the lost. We're supposed to show them that there is no hope of going to heaven without Jesus Christ. Let's look at Revelation 21:8. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. There is a difference between judging believers. When you and I judge each other, it's to get us on the right path. It's to restore that fellowship. Read 1 John chapter 1. It's all about a Christian restoring that fellowship, not relationship, not regaining salvation. You cannot lose your salvation, but you can harm your fellowship with God. But for a lost person, they have no fellowship with God because they're lost. They're not saved. They're not his child. Contrary to the fun, popular opinion, not everyone is a child of God. Read Ephesians 2. You're adopted when you get saved. That's how you become a child of God. Read John chapter 1. That's when you become a son of God, when you get saved through the gospel, because of what Jesus Christ did. There's no fellowship between God and an unbeliever. So there's no point in going around and trying to help them clean up every individual sin. But for you and for me, we are to mortify the flesh. We are to live in a way where we don't act like hypocrites. We don't look like hypocrites. The world's already going to hate us as it is. The world doesn't want to hear that they're not good enough to go to heaven on their own. The world doesn't want to hear that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. The world doesn't want to hear that. But don't have a bad testimony and give the world another reason to hate you. Let them reject you because they're rejecting Jesus Christ. Not because you're a phony, not because you're a hypocrite, not because you're just some person that means well. If you are born again, if you're a Christian watching this, please examine yourself and ask, how is my fellowship with Jesus Christ? Pray to God. Ask him to reveal those sins to you and and ask him to help you grow closer to him. If you're watching this and you've never been born again, you're not a Christian, you've never come to Jesus Christ for salvation, I'm going to place some verses on the screen, and I beg you to please read them, because once you're dead, there is no second chance. You and I, every person needs Jesus Christ, and he will not reject you if you come to him. Remember, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Take care, and I'll see you next time.